All right, well, welcome back. Now, just real quick introductions, just in case you forgot over the last 10 minutes. That's Jeremy Foster, and I'm Christopher Harrison, and this is Developing Mobile Web Applications. Now, in the last module, we took a look at the UI, but we left off probably the most important part of the mobile web UI. Touch. Now, keep in mind that anytime that somebody's grabbing a phone, most tablets, this is going to be the device that they're going to be using to interact with it. And I would even argue that an increasing percentage of desktop users are the exact same. That probably one of the best investments I made in my house was spending the little bit of money and getting myself a touchscreen monitor. And I love that thing. And I talked about this during the intro, that it's just great. It's a very natural interface to bring up a menu and just kind of boom, boom, boom. And it's much faster than moving around in a mouse. So even if you are targeting the desktop, target touch. Mobile first, touch first. So let's get in and start talking about how to work with touch. So we'll talk about a few considerations, some issues you want to think about. We'll talk about the JavaScript support that's available, and then we'll roll on into a library. But let's start by talking about touch. Like I said before, focus on touch. It's a natural interface. It's available not just on mobile devices and tablets, but desktops, laptops, basically these planars that we're using. PCP 2785. PCT 2785. Everybody always asks what the model is. So there you go.
There it is.
So yeah, there it is. So everything's about touch. In fact, in case you haven't noticed, I kind of like the fact that these are touch. It works very well. So everything now is touch. But because of the fact that everything is now touch, we need to pay a lot more attention to handling touch when we're designing our sites. You want to get away from those tiny little links, because my fat little fingers are not going to be able to work really well with that. Give me a nice big button to click on. And please, if you learn nothing else in this entire MVA, if you're going to use cascading menus, and I'm okay with cascading menus, I think to a certain extent they're kind of passé, but I'm okay with them. But make sure that they work with touch and not just simply mouse over.
Well, that's enough to drive you crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, I can't stand that.
You know, you can do it fast enough if you hold your finger on it and then you let go and then try to touch it and you go.
Yeah.
You can get it. Sometimes.
It's like a game.
Yeah.
A little whack-a-mole there. Yeah, and it really becomes very annoying, and I can't stand that. So again, make sure that you support touch, and make sure that every level of your little screen is going to land on something. So that way, if I've got my About Us, make sure that if I tap on About Us, that it would take me to a page that's going to have that full detail. Now, the other big thing when it comes to touch is you have to remember the fact that the device that the user is using very well may capture that touch. So, for example, if I swipe in from the side here, you're going to notice that I get the charms bar over on the right-hand side. Or if I swiped in from the top, I'm not in an immersive app, but if I had swiped in from the top, I would get a menuing system that way as well. So avoid the sides and focus in on the ooey gooey center of the device. It's also not a bad idea at all to add in a long press. Now, one of the things that we teach users, if they're not sure about something, put their mouse over it or right click. The analogy to that is that press and hold. And you'll notice that Windows supports this. And then when I release, well, I'm in Zoom It, so that's why it's not giving me anything there. There we go. So it brings up the little icons down there on the lower left. All of that's based on that long press, which is going to simulate a right click. So use that for things like context menus and to bring up additional information. Now, all of that being said, there are some issues, and we talked about a couple of them up top. The other big thing is that the supported events that you're going to get are very primitive. Again, designed for touch first. Okay, so let's get in and start taking a look at JavaScript support. And you will notice that there is a touch event or set of touch events that JavaScript supports. Touch start, touch enter, touch cancel, touch leave, touch move. Basically, if you want to implement touch, JavaScript has got an event for you, which is wonderful. It's fantastic. And you'll even notice that I can get a lot of great information about the touch and what happened. So for example, there's a touch, which just simply tells me they're in target with the screen. There's a target touch, which tells me that they're inside of the exact same element, maybe inside of that image. And there's also a change touch, which would tell me if they moved that item from one spot to the next. And I do have, there we go. There's my little move animation right there. And I want everybody to appreciate that. That took me a lot longer than I'm willing to admit to actually get to work. So yeah, thank you. I know. So in any event, so we've got all of those primitives. And I can also go in and figure out exactly where on the screen or where on the viewport, aka browser, that the user is touching. Again, all of that is fantastic. But so the screen X and Y is going to be based on the screen coming in from the sides. The client X and Y is going to be inside the browser. Now, you'll notice that I'm kind of kicking through all of this, and you'll notice I can get additional information about the touch itself. And you're going to see why in a minute. The reason is that, unfortunately, a lot of these are a little too primitive. And you're also going to notice that not every browser supports this. Here, let's get in and take a look here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fire up Visual Studio. There we go. And let's collapse all of that away, and let's add in a brand new item here, add HTML page. We'll call this touch. We'll hit OK, and give me a div tag, ID equals touch, style equals height, and let's say 500 pixels, width, and let's say 500 pixels, and let's say background color, and let's make that blue. Okay. So there's a very simple little div tag, and sure enough, if I fire this up, we've got a big div tag. That's just what I'm going to use to for my touch. And then let's go in and set up a little script, and let's go ahead and say, document get element.
You know what? Let's try this. Instead of typing document.getElement by ID, just type the word touch. Did your mind just explode? There you go.
Okay.
Not as a method. You don't need parentheses. That's the DOM element there.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm going a slightly Sorry, I'm going a slightly different direction there.
I see.
You absolutely can go in and grab the DOM element of touch there. But what I'm wanting to do here is I'm wanting to make that div tag responsive. So when I touch on it, that something's going to happen.
I see.
Yep. So I'm going to go this route, and I'm also going this route also just to show off the fact that I can set up a touch event similar to the exact same way that I would set up a normal event. So let's just go in and say touch, and let's go in and say var element equals. There we go. And then let's go ahead and say element, and let's say add event listener. Okay. So on my add event listener, I'm going to go in and I'm going to say touch start, which tells me, of course, that somebody, tapped on that. And then I'm going to add in a function right here. And I would get some event args if I cared about them, which I'm not going to, but if I did, there we go. And then let's go in and say alert, touched. Beautiful. So just a very simple little demo here. You touch on it, it's just going to pop up an alert. Cool. Now, by the way, I will always admit when a demo fails that I wasn't expecting. Okay?
All right.
All right. This is going to fail.
Ground rules with this. Okay.
This is going to fail. I'm trying to be loud enough so that my mic is picking up the fact that I am tapping away on the monitor.
Futilely. Yeah. Tapping futilely.
Tapping futilely. That double tap expanded it. But you'll notice that I'm not getting an alert here. Interesting. Well, let's try another browser. No, I don't want you as my default. There we go. All right. So it worked in Chrome, but it didn't work in IE. Now, the reason that it didn't work in IE is because IE has a set of pointer events. So what I could do is I could go in and say, all right, well, element. I spend so much time in C# that I always expect the IntelliSense to behave the exact same way, and it gets me every single time. In any event, I want pointer enter.
You are literally in any event.
Ah, yes, I see what you did there. Well done.
Actually, you did it.
There we go. Okay. Perfect. All right. So now, alert, and let's go ahead and say pointer. There we go. So now I've got my pointer enter, and this is what IE is going to look for. And then up here, this is what a lot of other browsers are going to be looking for. So now when I save this, if I bring back up my Internet Explorer, hit refresh, and now I tap on that, sure enough, it's giving me my pointer event. If I go back to Chrome and I hit refresh, and I tap on that, now you'll notice that it's touched.
Now I hesitate, but I think this will be fun. Let's go back to your code. Let's comment out your var element line. And where you have element on the next two iterations, just type the word touch. And run that.
Ah.
Voila.
Voila.
See how we've accessed that element by its ID and are still able to do everything that the get element by ID is capable of doing, because it returns a DOM element, and in fact the touch is the DOM element. And it used to be that I didn't advise people to go this way because you're relying on the fact that the browsers are putting those DOM elements, if they have an ID, in fact, into the global namespace.
Okay.
But now all the browsers pretty much do it. So now I say, go ahead and do it, because it really saves a lot of code.
So it's
Yes.
not, yeah, so it's not because it's touch, and
That's right.
and I think we should be clear on that.
That's a good idea.
So yeah, so let me...
It's the ID of that
Exactly.
element.
So what you're saying is that the browser is automatically adding that in,
Yep.
making that available, so that way I don't have to go in and say get element by ID.
Yeah.
And now I could go in and there we go.
Still
and
works.
turn off. That
And to
still
be
works.
fair, some people
Yep.
still recommend against it, but use
Yep.
your best judgment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Now, here's the point that I really want you to come away with from this is trying to implement touch here. Because again, now we've got two different sets of events depending on the browser type. And we've got a lot of raw information. That's going to make it a real challenge. Because what we're going to be looking to do is we're going to be looking to implement all of the different functionality that somebody would typically have inside of a touch application. So for example, pinch to zoom, swipe, tap. This looks like a lot of work. And I don't know about you, Jeremy, but I've got better things to do with my time. I mean, it's football season after all. I don't want to have to deal with this. So there's a friend of mine that likes to say, we're not launching rockets here. And the point that he's making when he says that is whatever it is that we're doing, somebody else has already done. And in this day and age, somebody else has already been kind enough to create a GitHub project a Codeplex project with that code that solves that problem all set and ready to go. And that is exactly what I want to take a look at here. This is where Hammer.js comes into play. Now, I want to pause briefly here just to mention there are a lot of libraries that will implement this. jQuery Mobile will do this. If you go to micro.js, you can find a lot of different libraries that will help you implement touch. This is just one that I chose, partly because the song will get stuck in your head. But this is one of many libraries that will work for you, and they all do a lot of the same functionality. So what I want to do here is I want to talk about the basics of the library, talk about the events, how to register them, and how to respond to those events. So first of all, the basics simplifies the creation of those applications. And this is the bigger thing, is it doesn't require jQuery. So if you're not wanting to take that dependency, you don't have to. Cool. By the way, and Jeremy's actually going to be highlighting this a little bit later, one thing that's going to happen quite frequently is you'll be dealing with a lot of different libraries. So let's say that I am using jQuery, but I'm also using Hammer. Wouldn't it be nice to have both of those work together? And you'll notice that there's a lot of little libraries that are out there that are designed to do exactly that are designed to extend one to add on the functionality of another. And you'll notice that there is a library that will connect jQuery and Hammer.js for you. Now let's talk about all the different events that are available to you. The first of which is tap, which is going to look basically just like this. And notice the little red dot there that's simulating a finger. Just tap and disappear. We've got press, which is going to be touch down, and then wait, and then eventually take your finger off. You're going to notice that we've got pan, and the difference between pan and the next event, which is swipe, is speed. So pan is just simply I'm moving my finger across, maybe moving one item from one side of the screen to another, while swipe is going to be relatively quick, just whoosh, just right across there. So pinch is going to be exactly what you would expect, so that pinch to zoom there. And then finally, last but not least, rotate, and that's going to be where I've got two fingers on the screen, and I'm moving them around from one side to the other, like that. Now, I want you to think about all of those different events. And those are all the typical events that people are going to be looking for inside of a touch-enabled device. And let's remember again the raw data that I'm going to get with my normal JavaScript events. That I'm going to know where on the screen the user is, I'm going to know what it is that they're doing, but it's going to be up to me to interpret all of that. I'm going to have to detect the speed. I'm going to have to detect how many fingers are on the screen. I'm going to have to detect how are they moving. Are they rotating, or are they sliding in or sliding back out? Again, I don't want to have to do any of that. Oh, and that's also not to mention the fact that I'm going to have to deal with IE versus Chrome versus Firefox versus whatever other browser it is that you might be using there. So using a library is going to make your life easier here. Now, fortunately, registering events is pretty straightforward. What you're going to do is create a brand new Hammer object based around the element that you want, and then you're going to go in and set up the event handler just by simply saying your variable name on the name of the event, and then the event handler. And what can you do inside that event handler? Basically everything that you want. Now you are going to notice that the default implementation that you might expect is not going to be there. So for example, pinch to zoom is not going to do anything by default. It is going to be up to you to implement that, which makes sense. Because one of the things that we highlighted earlier was our SVG element. And the thing about our SVG element is we could resize the entire thing, or we could maybe decide, you know what, I only want to resize one component inside of that SVG. Well, Hammer.js doesn't know that. It doesn't know what you're trying to do. So fortunately, it will let you decide. And it's actually relatively easy to pick up on what it is that the user is doing and figure it all out from there. All right, enough talk. Let's get in and take a look. All right, let's add HTML page, and oh, I already had from before. I want to create a brand new one. I'm just going to say hammer demo. Beautiful. All right. Now, let me add in an image here. There we go. And I'm going to give this an ID of resize image. And let's go in and say H2 hammer demo. OK. Now, what I want to do is I want to add in the functionality to resize this image. And let me just Control F5 here real quick. Now, you'll notice that if I do a pinch to zoom, that this works right out of the box. But what I want you to notice here is that it's resizing the entire page, not just the image. So the functionality that I'm looking to implement is I just want to resize that image and nothing else. OK. And I'm actually going to use the small version. I think that's going to work a little bit better. OK. So now let me set up my couple little scripts here. So let me add in my hammerman. And let me script and let's say document, add event listener. And this is going to be ready and function. And there we go. I'm right, the event name is ready. I get so reliant on jQuery. I'm right?
Yep.
OK, good. All right. So now what I want to do is I want to go grab that DOM element. So let's go ahead and say var image equals document dot get element by ID. And I'm still going to do it the old-fashioned way. Resize image. There we go.
You might not be right about that. At least that's not the way I normally write it. I normally start it with the jQuery document, the cache document dot ready, and then pass in the function.
Right.
Does that one work as well?
This one should work.
Okay, good.
We're going to find out momentarily.
There you go.
You know what? Here. Because now I'm just doubting myself.
Yeah, right.
and that's it. Is I'm trying to avoid putting in the jQuery, and I'm not right. Don't make me put in the jQuery.
It shouldn't be on ready. You know, just try the put a cache before, put a $sign before the document. No, just before the document, just before the D. There you go. And then erase add event listener, and the parenthesis and the quote and the word on. So document.ready.
Right. The problem is I don't have.
Spell function wrong. Will that work? You have jQuery, right?
No, that's what I was trying to avoid.
Oh. I'm sorry. So you want unload. You want unload.
Unload. Thank you. See, and this is one of those things, you know, kind of going back to what we were talking about before. Well, A, we're really cooking on this show, but also B, unload.
Just load if you're in an add event listener.
There we go. There we go. All right. But this is one of those things, you know, relying on jQuery can then set you sideways in a situation like this. And that's exactly what happened to me. And I'm just going to test it.
And if it doesn't work, then it's because it needs to be on the body. So would that be document.body?
No, it is on document. You know, we're just going to go this route. All right, here. You know, somebody in the Q&A is screaming at us going, guys, it's this simple. And we're just going to make it hard. All right, you know what? I'm just going, there, I did it, okay? And I don't feel good about myself. In any event, $per-end function. There we go. Okay, and we'll just do it the old-fashioned way. Okay, so let's go in and do a couple of real quick things here. I'm going to say var... And let's say image equals document.get element by ID. And let's say resize image. And let's say var $image equals. And I'm going to say $paren image. Since, you know, I have it, I may as well use it. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to set up my, my little event here. So I'm now going to say var MC equals new hammer, and let's pass in our little image. And I'm not using the jQuery one there. That would be with the $sign. Instead, I'm just going to use our root just image, the one using the typical DOM. I'm going to say MC on, and then let's go in and say tap. And then let's go ahead and say function. And then inside of here, let's go ahead and just simply say alert and tapped. Perfect. Okay, so now what I did is I created our little hammer object, wired that up to our little image. I added on a brand new function for tap. And when you tap on it, we're going to alert tapped. Cool. And so now, if I tap on it, sure enough, it says tapped. Ooh. Now that's just simply proof of concept. That's just simply showing that, yes, this works. Let's go in and let's say pinch. Because that's, of course, what I want. And let's go in and say pinched. And let's go ahead and fire this back up. And then I am, in fact, pinching. By the way, this is a demo I knew was going to fail. And you'll notice it's not doing anything. The reason is that with pinch, it needs just a little bit more information. It needs to know what kind of a wiggle room I want to give it for a threshold. So if somebody maybe puts a finger on, plays around with the other, pulls it off, do I want to give them a little bit of play space, so to speak, inside of there? And in my case, I don't. So I'm just simply going to say MC add. And I'm going to add in a brand new pinch event. And then inside of here, I'm going to say threshold. And I'm going to set that to be 0. And now, if I bring this back up, now what you're going to notice is I get a whole bunch of dialog boxes. I'm just going to sit here for a second and just keep holding down enter. So it is now, in fact, pinching. Cool. So now, let's go in and actually do the resizing here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say image width, and I'm going to set this to be a very simple calculation of image dot width times, and I'm going to go with my EV. I need an event handler there. EV dot scale. Now my scale is going to give me basically how big they wanted that to be, starting at 1 and then scaling up or scaling down. And by just simply setting the width, now it's going to be able to resize. So let's go back in. Whoa, and then it resized and then resized all the way back down again. So I kind of went at that a little bit too big there. Oh, I know why. I want, give me 1 second. I need one little thing, var width equals dollar image width. There we go, this will help. The thing that I had done, the little mistake that I had made there, is I need to make sure I capture the original width. So that way I'm resizing on the original width.
Yeah.
Otherwise you wind up doing it exponentially, and that was what did me in there. There we go. Ooh.
Wonderful.
So it's just doing that.
Yeah.
Now, I want to go back to a point that Jeremy had made earlier, which is just to simply point out that I can also, and this one I've got pre-baked, resize an SVG. Now, in my case here, what I did was I set up a little loop where I'm going through that SVG element, finding every single polygon inside of there, and resizing those as well. But the end result, come here. There we go. The end result is that this is now resizable. Or again, to Jeremy's point, if I just wanted to resize an individual item inside of there, because of the fact that I gave them all names. So let's just go in and say inner, and we'll do that one instead. And now we'll go ahead and rerun this. Now what you're going to notice, oh, I know why. I need, why are you resizing the entire thing?
Do you want me to buy some time?
I'm not going to worry about it. It is possible. There's a simple mistake in my code that I'm just not going to worry about for right now. I'll fix it at lunch. There's a simple mistake here. But you can go in and resize just an individual item rather than resizing the entire thing. Okay. In any event, so here's the takeaway that we want you to get out of this entire module. Number one, touch first. Focus on touch. Just like mobile first, focus on touch first. Number two is use a library. While yes, you can go in and get the raw events, it's going to be much easier to go in and use a library. All right. With that, I don't know about you, Jeremy. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm hungry.
I'm ready for a meal break.
Yeah. What do you say we take a meal break? We're going to come on back at the top of the hour, and then we'll get rolling with Jeremy actually doing a whole lot of talking because I'm tired of talking.
There we go.
Yeah. All right.
I've got my vocal cords warmed up. I'm ready to roll.
All right, cool. So we'll see you guys at the top of the hour.